Good evening and welcome to the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net. Tonight we are live from Studio Vanguard and we are linked in with the following repeaters.
Tonight we are on Flagship, Dallas, Jersey, Buckhead, Toccoa, Lula, Watkinsville, McDonough, Noonan, Columbus, Ocala, Rome, Peachtree, Zebulon, Lookout Mountain, Fort Mountain, White Oak Mountain, Chattanooga, Cades Cove, Mount Roosevelt, Ooltewah, and Georgetown.
Tonight, our RF coverage encompasses approximately 41,000 square miles. This net takes place every Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. I would like to thank everyone who has made the North Georgia GMRS the most expansive and active GMRS network in the country. Your net control tonight is Atlanta 947, WQIR 514. My name is Julie.
And WRWM 344, Blue Ridge 63. My name is Mike.
And WSAL 368, Atlanta 263. My name is Rogers.
And WRUB 711, Atlanta 519. My name is Gary.
On the net, you can talk about your day's activities, radio equipment, or anything you think we would like to hear. This is a family-based network, so we encourage you to get your family involved. Guest check-ins are welcome from anyone with a valid FCC call sign. Once the floor is open, it is permissible to address other members of the net by their name or tactical unit number. Your FCC call sign is only required when you sign in and when you sign out of the net. Also, you can tune in to our YouTube channel and follow along. Or even better, tune in after the net and hear how you sound to us right here in Studio Vanguard. Remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment so we know you were watching. These interactions mean the most to help our channel grow. So tonight's topic is, emergency comms.
That's right.
Yes, yeah. But before we dive into that topic, let's turn it over to Mike for this week's announcements.
All right. Well, thank you, Julie. This is Blue Ridge 63, live from Studio Vanguard with this week's news and announcements. We'll start with the upcoming gatherings. Pay attention if you would like to get out and meet other members in your area. It's a great way to meet some new faces and put a face with some of the voices that you hear on the air. First one up is this Saturday, the West Side Luncheon on July 13th, 11 a.m. at the Taco Mac in Marietta. The Rabbit Hole crew will not be there this week. They've got some family matters to attend to, but they encourage all the regulars to attend anyway. David recommends the Rabbit Wings. That's very fitting. Hey, this one is brand new. Check this out. Billy, Atlanta 924, has taken the initiative to put together a new lunch meetup for the folks in and around the Jasper, LJ, Canton area. It'll be at the Biggins Barbecue a little over a month from now. The date is Saturday, August 16th. Saturday, August 16th at 11:30 a.m. All friends, family, and guests are invited. Biggins, if you're not familiar, is located on 515 between Jasper and LJ. If you have any questions ahead of time, reach out to Atlanta 924, Billy, on the air. If you have a North Georgia GMRS shirt, don't forget to wear it. The Peachtree Corners Brunch Bunch meets up the third Saturday of every month. This month, that'll be July 19th at 12 noon at JR's Log House in Peachtree Corners. Reach out to Atlanta 849 Pamela if you have any questions or would like more information. The Northeast Bunch will be having their monthly lunch meetup at the Roosters Cafe in Dahlonega on Wednesday, July 30th at 11 a.m. As always, all current and future members are welcome. If you have any questions, reach out to Atlanta 403 Bobby or Gainesville 44 Joe. They hope to see you there. For our new members as well as guests listening in, I'll give you a quick rundown on our weekly nets. There are a few changes, a couple new additions, so pay attention. Real quick, let me break. First change, this coming Monday, July 14th at 7 p.m., there will be an ESN training net. What is ESN, Julie?
I don't know.
Emergency Standby Net.
Wow, that is awesome.
We're going to talk about that tonight.
Yeah,
It fits in with tonight's topic. So if you were listening during the early check-ins, you heard some folks indicate that they're an ESN net control operator. This net is for them. Of course, everybody can listen in. That's a training net, so if you are a net control operator for that, we encourage you to check in this coming Monday, July 14th at 7 p.m. The Ladies Roundtable Net is the first Monday of every month. The next one will be August 4th, starts at 8 p.m. Just like any other net, you can check in at that time. If you miss the start, just listen in, and as the conversation goes, when there's a break, you can key up and say comment, and your host, Atlanta 255, Jennifer, will get you in the roster. Tuesdays feature Tuesdays feature our Skywarn net on the northern region of the network. This is a training net for the Skywarn weather spotters in coordination with the National Weather Service and is available only on the Chattanooga portion of our network. Wednesdays feature a short ERC net at 8 p.m. This is a roll call net and is closed to North Georgia GMRS members. It's intended for ERC members only. Please refrain from checking into this net unless you're an ERC member. The regional net, this net, is every Thursday with early check-ins starting at 7 p.m. and our program beginning around 7:30. This net covers a variety of topics, and sometimes it's worth tuning into. We try to get those topics posted on our Facebook page earlier in the week. We encourage all of our members to participate. If you're a new member, it's a great time to jump on and introduce yourself. And if you can't tune in on the air, check us out on YouTube. We do stream this net live to YouTube every week. You can watch it live or replay it later. And if you check in on the air, you can watch the net later to hear how you sound on the air. On Fridays, we've got 2 nets. The first one is the Friday Night at 9 Simplex Challenge every Friday starting at 8 p.m. The net starts out on the Monument repeater before breaking out into separate GMRS Simplex frequencies to find out who your Simplex neighbors are. Also, for the amateur license folks, before that GMRS Simplex Challenge net is the Friday Night at 9 2-meter Simplex Challenge. If you're an amateur license holder, you can jump on the N4KHQ repeater at 7:15 p.m. And participate in that net. Your host, Mark K4KOP, will guide you in a directed net testing various VHF, UHF, and single sideband frequencies. They hope to hear you there. The Rabbit Hole Net is all about preparedness and airs every other Sunday on the network. The next episode, well, this is outdated. It says the next episode will be July 6th, but it'll be this Sunday. I'm sorry, a week from Sunday. Topic TBD. Early check-ins for that net start at 7 p.m. and the net starts at 7:30. So every other Sunday, 7 p.m. Let me break. All right, that's the rundown on our weekly nets. There's a lot to listen to. There's almost
really
something
is.
every night. Something going on every night. One request that we do have periodically, please update your membership info if it changes on our website. You can go to nggmrs.org, click on that existing member information update link. And that's useful if your email address changes, phone number changes, if you receive or if you pass your amateur license and you'd like to add your call sign, anything else. It helps us be able to keep in touch with you and the regular newsletters that we send out. So again, update that if any of your information changes. All right, well, that's it. If you have any questions, comments, or other news to share that you'd like to get in the announcements in future nets, please send an email to justin@nggmrs.org. All right, back to you, Julie.
Well, thank you for all that, Mike. Whew, that was a lot.
There's a lot
This is
going on.
very busy network for sure. So if you can't find something to get involved in, then you're not trying.
That's right.
All right, so this week on the new user tips and operating procedures, we will talk about urgent and emergency communications. Is your family prepared for an emergency? Many of us found the North Georgia GMRS Network by looking for alternative communication tools. Concerns for widespread and long-duration outages are real and do happen. We get complacent with our phones and our internet when they work well, but let's not forget why we're here. Well, at least why some of us are here. Alternative communications. In an emergency, we may find conventional communications unusable. If that happens, we should have our family members familiar with radio operations. There's no worse time to train an operator than during an emergency. You could be wasting valuable battery life just going over the basics. It's best if we take some time to train before trouble comes our way. Encourage your family to engage in some backyard simplex comms as a training exercise. Teach them how to change channels, change volume, and power on and off. Teach them how to hold the radio when they speak into it. Teach them to key first, pause, then speak. Teach them to listen, to be sure the channel is clear before you key up, and help them learn and remember your call sign. Remember, TAC numbers are not required for simplex operations, but they make it easier for those who operate both in simplex and in repeater operations. Make an emergency comms plan. Establish which channels you'll use for different circumstances. Establish a radio time where you will power radios on and attempt contacts, then power them off to conserve batteries. Let me break. Our rabbit hole friends often talk about the 3-3-3 plan. Engage in periodic radio exercises to maintain your family's skills and correct any bad habits you may find. Make sure your family members actually key the mic and know how to talk into the radio. All of these practices can be done on simplex channels, so there's no concern about tying up the network for training activities. Once your family is trained, we invite them to check into any of our nets. North Georgia GMRS is a family-oriented communications network, and we encourage you to get your family involved. Further, encourage your family to get familiar with radio operations and engage in radio communications during the weekly nets, or just with the membership in general. It's a lot easier to ask someone for help if you've spoken with them before. And the more familiar your family becomes with members on the network, the more likely someone will be able to assist you or your family when trouble comes. We hope these procedures become more than an exercise and develop regular radio use and engagement. We all know familiarity with using the radio could become vitally important if we are ever faced with a true emergency, and should be a regular part of your family's emergency plans. These are the practices that make us the best radio operators on the North Georgia GMRS Network. I hope you'll tune in next week for my next episode of Julie's Tips and Operating Procedures. If you have any questions or suggestions for new user tips and operating procedures, send me a note at julie@ngmrs.org. We are North Georgia GMRS Network, and this is WQIR 514, Atlanta 947, and my name is Julie. And with that, we'll break, and then I think we should begin with our check-ins.
All right.
All right.
Well, thanks a lot, Julie. We'll go ahead and, as you said, take some check-ins. So let's start with
Flagship.
Flagship. You want to start with Flagship tonight?
Yeah.
All right, let's start with Flagship users. If you're on another repeater, hold your traffic for just a few, and let's get the Flagship check-ins first. Net Control standing by.
This is Whiskey Sierra Foxtrot Lima 995, Atlanta 1126, checking in.
You want to switch?
This is WSCB 913, Atlanta 243, Amanda, checking in and checking out.
Go.
This is Atlanta 121, WSGR 903, Rex in Dawsonville, checking in and out. This is WRWM 256, Atlanta 256, and by way of relay, Atlanta 256.1 Holly, live from Dawsonville, Georgia. I'll be in and out tonight, guys.
This is Atlanta 261 WRCT 399. Scott from Holly Springs. It pains me so, Miss Julie, but if you would just check me in and out, and we will visit with you shortly down the future. Love you guys. Thank you.
Pamela just now. She needs her own show. That's the announcement for her lunch gathering. It's a whole page.
That can go on Facebook. I'm not reading.
Yeah, no, that's too much. Too much. Okay, that's on silent. And so where are we at? Any repeater anywhere?
No, we haven't got there yet. We're still on flagship. You can open it up, though.
All right. Let's go ahead and acknowledge this round of check-ins, and then I'm going to acknowledge the YouTube check-ins that we have so far. So we had on the radio, we heard Atlanta 1126. Joseph in Snellville is in with us tonight. Atlanta 243, Amanda in Gainesville is in and out. Atlanta 121, Rex in Dawsonville is in and out. Atlanta 256.1, Holly is in and out. And Atlanta 256, Chuck in Dawsonville, also in and out. Atlanta 261, Scott in Holly Springs promises to get together with us very soon. Looking forward to that, Scott. We just got to put a date on a calendar and make it happen. And then YouTube check-ins, we had Atlanta 355, Damon in Canton. Atlanta 273, Mitchell in Canton. Atlanta 766, Jeff in Monroe. Gainesville 63, Willard in Homer. WRWY 456, Dave in Rogersville, Missouri. We had Rome 11, Mark in Adairsville. Columbus 25, Peter in West Point. Atlanta 785, Rick in Marietta. Atlanta 1150, Tony in Canton. We have a guest check-in from WQAI 363, Adam in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Atlanta 514, Michael in Cartersville. Chattanooga 190, Cliff in Culleoka, Tennessee. And we have guest check-in from WRQE 398, R. Ferguson in Hayesville, Kansas. Glad to have all of you along tonight on the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net. By the way, I am Atlanta 946. WQIR 514. My name is Justin.
It's good to have you, Justin.
Well, you know, because I wasn't here. When
You didn't get a sign in the beginning.
No. So kind of need to throw that out there. But that's where we're at. We got to take another round of check-ins.
Well, let's squeeze one more YouTube check-in in here. Just that way our log is consistent.
All right, we do like a consistent log, thick like oatmeal. Yeah. Atlanta 247, Jonathan in Alajay is another YouTube check-in.
There we go. All right, now open it up.
Now I have permission to accept check-ins from. What did we do this first time around?
Well, it's flagship only, so
Okay.
we'll do any
repeater, any repeater anywhere. Net control standing by.
This is WSIS 715, Chattanooga 51, in and out.
This is WSFY 564, Chattanooga 253, in Dalton, Georgia. I'm checking in and out. Have a good night, good day, guys.
This is Whiskey Sierra Hotel Golf 331, Atlanta 350, Ted and Tucker checking in and out and listening. Thank you. This is Chattanooga 248, WSFP 846, Matt in downtown Old Fort, Tennessee. Check me in and back out.
This is Brett, Chattanooga 179, WRXI 877. Check me in and out, please.
This is WRPU 564,
Gainesville 113, Keith and Flowery Branch, checking in and checking out.
This is WRKA 361, Atlanta 710. Scott and Roswell checking in and checking out.
All right, let's go ahead and acknowledge this round of check-ins. We heard that Chattanooga 5-1 Howard and Saudi Daisy is in and out. These are all in and out. Chattanooga 253 Roy and Dalton in and out. Atlanta 350 Ted and Tucker in and out. Chattanooga 248 Matthew and Old Fort is in and out. Chattanooga 179 Brett and Chattanooga in and out. Gainesville 113 Keith in Flowery Branch is in and out, and Atlanta 710 Scott in Roswell is in and out. All right, and those are the check-ins we have. We'll take another round of check-ins once we get to the end of the program, one final round before we close. So if you didn't get checked in now, stick around. There'll be an opportunity for you to do that as we approach the end of the program. And so a couple of additional things that I wanted to cover. You know, you may have noticed that we're not taking the long, awkward pause for Zello check-ins. And, we don't have Zello. Well, we do, but we don't. So basically what happened is Zello has kind of transitioned from the free Zello service that we've been using for all these years. We've been with Zello for 8 or 9 years, I think. We've been with them for a long time. But Zello has transitioned that service into a subscriber base. So in order to continue using Zello's service, we have to pay for the service. And the subscription model is not cheap. It's prohibitive based on where we're at right now. So we're kind of looking for something to replace that. Now, there's a lot of things that are out there. But there are certain criteria that have to be met. For instance, we have to be able to control who can access the app and be able to join into the network through the app. So some of the apps that are out there don't allow us to have that level of control. And basically anybody anywhere can jump into the linked network and start transmitting on our repeater network. And we can't do that. So we have to have some control and restriction over who has access and how it's accessed. Let me break. And then there's a number of other apps that are geared towards serving amateur radio specifically, and looking at rules and terms and conditions in some of those apps. We're not allowed to use GMRS radio in those environments. So that's an out. So we do have a team that is actively, currently, specifically looking for a replacement for Zello. And we've talked about also just, establishing maybe a one-way streaming service, which is something we may push a little bit harder on, because we can do that more easily than we can get back into a replacement for Zello. But these are things that are in the works, but have to remember that our entire staff is made up of volunteers. And some of these volunteers have families, full-time jobs, stuff to do during the day, stuff to do during the night. And so it's not that it's a back burner project, but it is back burner in terms of people's lives and what they have to do. So be patient. We haven't abandoned the concept, but we do not currently have a good candidate to replace Zello. So that's where things stand. So for those that are wondering what's going on and why we're not on Zello anymore, stay tuned. We're working on some things, and a streaming service may be coming. We haven't looked very deeply into that, but I think there might be some options where we can stream. One of the concerns is there's a lot of misunderstanding with regard to Part 95 rules, and so some streaming services and radio services, particularly the ones that are geared towards amateur radio, are under the misguided understanding that you can't link in GMRS radio, so they don't want to expose themselves to any kind of an FCC action. We've been linking since 2012 under the same Part 95 rules that have existed for all this time. There was a big rule change that came about in 2017, another rule change that came about in 2021, and in neither case was any significant change made. Nothing was changed with regard to the rules related to linking. So if there was a rule violation in play, I'm pretty sure someone from the FCC would have sent us an official document telling us to knock it off.
You'd think so.
But that's not happened, so I believe that we are in full compliance with Part 95 FCC rules.
And we're going to keep, as they say, carrying on.
That's right, until there's a reason not to, and I don't believe that reason will ever come. So we're going to lead the world in GMRS communications and in linking. So good stuff. So just wanted to share that with everyone. If you have hopes and desires for GMRS linking, let me break. For an app that you can use related to your phone, I don't have a good answer for you right now, other than we got people looking at it, and
we do want to do it.
Yeah, we absolutely do.
It's not giving up on.
And even if it means that we have to pay for a service, I don't think that's off the table. But the level of payment that Zello is expecting is, I think, beyond. We would have to make significant increases in membership dues. So I don't think that we're going to try to go that way. Maybe that could be an add-on option to a membership, but we're not really even at a point where we can discuss that. With whatever platform we go to, we want it to be one platform for all. So that's where we're at. What's our topic? What are we talking about this week, Mike?
Tonight it's urgent and emergency communications. There is a difference. Did you find a ride home from the dealership?
So that's an interesting story. And another story is, once upon a time, I used to ride the express bus from Midtown to Woodstock. I would get on the bus every morning, ride it down. It would let me off about a block away from the building, so it's a short walk. It was uphill both ways and sometimes in the snow.
Right.
But a short walk from the bus stop to the building, and then in the afternoons, I would walk up the hill again to the bus stop and ride the bus from Midtown back to Woodstock. And oftentimes, just out of convenience, Julie wasn't working at the time, so we just, she would just pick me up, and then we would come home together from the bus stop at Woodstock. So anyway, sometimes I'd get off the bus and she's not there, and so my question is she 2 minutes away, or is she 10 minutes away? Because if she's 10 minutes away, I could walk across the street to Lowe's, and I could hang out in the air conditioning at Lowe's for 10 minutes and or 15 minutes or half an hour, whatever, if she's not going to be there right away. But it's a simple question, and it's 2 seconds of radio traffic. How far out are you? But sometimes, and very often, there would be radio traffic at that time. And I never really felt comfortable or confident at interrupting that traffic to try to get that question answered. So that was something that we never really, oftentimes would just wait, or just not even use the radio, because I didn't feel like I could interrupt an ongoing conversation. These guys would rag chew sometimes for half an hour, and by then I've got a ride and everything's good.
Or you could have walked.
Yeah, but yeah. So, and quite honestly, the scenario in the post was what obviously was fictional, I know it's a hard concept for some.
Well, we never know with you.
Yeah. Well, here's the bottom line: is when you're telling a story, you never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
There it is.
So
there it is.
But in any case, the truck is due for an oil change, so I'm gonna have to make that happen. This whole scenario could play out just like it was written. I doubt it, but it could. The whole money leaking out of the truck thing.
Yeah. Black gold.
That's a worry that I have. Every time the truck goes to the shop, is that what are they going to find?
Yep.
That's
great.
And that's been our experience too with Julie's car. Is you take it in, it's due for its next. When we bought the car, it came with X number of oil changes. And so you take it in for the oil change, and the oil change is covered, but it needs this filter, and it needs that belt, and it needs this.
Right. What about these 6 other things?
Yeah, and they're not covered. And when you have those things done by the dealer, the $12 cabin air filter to have the dealer change that is like $79.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's you open up the glove box, you flip the little thing, you pull the old filter out, you shove the new one in. You close that up, you put the glove box back together. The most difficult part about changing the cabin air filter is putting all the stuff back in the glove box the way it was when you opened it, because everything's coming out of the glove box. You can't keep it in the glove box so that's the most challenging part of the whole filter change, is the stuff that's in the glove box.
That's worth the difference between 12 and 79.
I suppose. I can't imagine the guys at the dealership. If it were me, you'd get all the glove box stuff back in a plastic sack.
Yeah.
But all right, let's break.
But more to the question: is that an emergency, or is that urgent?
Well, I think that
or
would
neither.
be. I think that would be an urgent communication message, because the idea behind an emergency communication is one where you have life or property at risk, and that would be at risk of destruction. So if you're in a vehicle accident, there could be injuries. All right, I think that constitutes, because now you have property and life at risk.
Yeah,
that constitutes an emergency. If there's a fire, all right, maybe your neighbor's house is on fire, maybe your house is on fire, and it's quicker to get to the radio than to the phone, or maybe you can't remember the number to 911. Roger, do you know the number to 911?
I'm pretty sure, but in an emergency, who knows?
In a panic, you could forget. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Gary knows. Look at him; he knows.
Yeah, it's written down.
It's written
He's
down.
He's got it saved.
He's got it. Yeah, he's got it on the back of his phone case.
Right.
So in case of emergency, call 911.
Right.
Something we should all have. But in any case, if you can't get to the phone and you need help, the radio is a good plan B. Now, the phone obviously should always be your first choice for a number of reasons. Let me break. The first reason is that there's not going to be any faster way to get emergency services to your address. The 911 operator has access to all kind of tools and information. As soon as you dial your phone, their screen is populated with a lot of information about who you are and where you are. All right, it's all tied in with your number. Even if you're cellular and you're mobile, they know what your billing address is. They know what your home address is. They probably have a really good idea of where you are based on, which cell towers your phone is pinging, and they can triangulate into that if they need to. They have access to some really impressive and some really cool tools. So let me break. So that's always going to be your best bet. If you can make the phone call, do that, because if you call out for help on the North Georgia GMRS Network, and people have. In fact, there was an emergency call taken not that long ago. I hope we get an opportunity to talk with McDonough 22 and learn more about how that took place. But there was an emergency call that was handled by the North Georgia GMRS Network not that long ago. So it can be done. And you've heard a lot of people check in identifying as ESN net control operators. Mike, do you know what that is?
ESN? ESN is our emergency standby net.
That's right.
We haven't talked a whole ton about it, though.
No, we really haven't. But what that is, and it's standby is the key here, right? All right. So it's a behind the scenes network of net control operators, volunteers who have identified themselves and established themselves as individuals that have some qualifications that can be available in the event of if we have. And I'll tell you, this was the inspiration behind this was Hurricane Helene.
Yeah.
All right, when the hurricane came through, we really didn't have a plan in place. And so if we have an event like that, we want to be able to stand up a net so that we can say, these guys are going to be monitoring. All right, we're going to have a net control operator who's passively monitoring. He's going to come on the air periodically. He's going to say, hey, I'm the ESN net operator, and I am monitoring, and I'll be monitoring for this period of time. And then he'll come back on at that period, and I'm going to be monitoring for another hour. I'm going to be monitoring whatever. So we just want to identify that there is somebody who is specifically tasked with listening to the network, so that if you have an emergency, we have someone who can respond. Let me break. So that's the first step to this. All right, we've got somebody who's monitoring, but what if our guy that's monitoring is sitting in his leather swivel chair at his desk high atop Mount Olympus, and somebody calls in with an emergency, and they're in Columbus, Georgia? Now, if someone from high atop Mount Olympus were to just pick up the phone and dial 911 and say, yeah, I've got a radio contact who's got an emergency in Columbus, Georgia, that 911 center may not have a good way of contacting the Columbus 911 center. In fact, a lot of them are very specifically not going to do that for you, and that's been my experience in the past. Maybe those things have changed here in Georgia, but in the past, if you call the wrong 911 center, they're not going to be able to dispatch help for you, and they're going to ask you to hang up and call somewhere else. So what we've done is we've collected the non-emergency phone number for all of these 911 centers throughout the state and surrounding areas. So if we get a call for Columbus, Georgia, we can look up and find the backdoor phone number for the 911 center in Columbus, or the 911 center in Macon, or the 911 center in Dahlonega, or in Woodstock, or wherever that might be.
Or in Blue Ridge.
There's never an emergency in Blue Ridge. I've been there, and people just don't move that fast.
No, it's very laid back.
It's very laid back. I love it. But in any case, we've built this directory of emergency services so that we can respond in not the most efficient way, but the most efficient way that we can, with the best information that we can, and hopefully we are able to provide an alternative emergency service if something like Hurricane Helene ever rolls through this area again. And maybe it's not a hurricane. Maybe it's a series of thunderstorms that are bringing tornadoes with them. Maybe it's a series of unexpected events. It could be a natural disaster. We've had some earthquakes in the region here lately.
Yeah, I felt my bed shake when that earthquake hit a couple months ago.
So I mean these have been. I was completely oblivious when it happened. I had no awareness until somebody said, "Hey, there was an earthquake." Really? I missed it. But these earthquakes in some parts of the world have been devastating, and we're lucky that we've not experienced a devastating earthquake. But that's the kind of thing that can knock out our conventional service. It can knock out power. It can knock out natural gas. It can knock out our phone lines and our internet. It can really do a lot of damage. So having a number of ESN operators scattered throughout the region gives us the opportunity to have better coverage if we do have a widespread outage, and allow for shift changes if it's a long duration. If it's a storm that's could take 12 or 16 or 24 hours to roll through the region, we can rotate shifts with our ESN operators and be able to have continuous coverage. So that's why you heard people talking about the ESN network, and those guys are here to provide a service for our members and non-members. I mean, if somebody came on the air and wasn't a member, we could probably still help.
Probably not going to turn them away.
Probably not. Yeah. So we'll do the best we can with what we have, and hopefully it's a service that we never really need to utilize. But if we do, we want to be prepared. We want to have some training. We want to have some resources available. Let's break.
Well, that really fits with the topic for tonight and just the broader preparedness themes that you hear on this network, whether it's in daily conversation or you're tuning into the Rabbit Hole Net every other Sunday, is it's better to be prepared ahead of time than you're not running out at the last minute scrambling and left unprepared while everybody else is unprepared too.
Oh, that's exactly.
You want a leg up.
It's one of the first things that we learned when we moved to Georgia, right? So when we lived in Fort Wayne, we had a number of, based on where we lived, we had a number of options that we could walk to if we needed to, but we never really needed to because you get 8, 10, 12 inches of snow in Fort Wayne, and they're not closing schools, they're not closing work. It's business as usual. So we had no reason to run to the grocery store and buy all the milk and bread before the storm came.
Right.
Because the store's going to be open. It's not an issue. And not only is the store going to be open, but you can get to it. Whereas here, there's a pretty fair chance. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Walmart closed. It's closed. There's nobody there. Doors are locked.
If the weatherman even thinks about the S word, pandemonium.
Oh yeah,
shelves sold out.
Well, the Waffle House is still open.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah. So I've seen the Walmart right here by us. I've seen it closed a handful of times. Outside of they close for Thanksgiving and they close for Christmas, and I think they close for one other thing. But
I'm not sure.
But they've closed it. They've closed it for weather a couple of times, and I'm glad that they do. All right, because one of the things that we've learned is that we're not going to wait until the day before the storm or the storm. We are. I mean, we run out of butter from time to time. We run out of milk from time to time, but that's normal and that happens anyway. And it has nothing to do with the storm. And if we're out of milk and the storm came, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
There's more than one way to make macaroni and cheese. So, and I tell you, the cooks around this place are pretty creative, almost as creative as 1402. But we're not going to go hungry just because we run out of milk or butter or eggs or what have you. And we've got a recently found a new source of eggs. I don't think we'll ever run out.
That's true.
In any case. And, we've been talking about chickens. We just haven't pulled the trigger on that, but it's time to make that happen. But in any case, there's a certain level of preparedness that just came with being here. Because when you get even a small snowstorm, it's very, very different than the snowstorms up north.
Yeah.
They don't treat the roads. There's no sand in the intersections. So we've learned to just stay put. We're staying. We're not going anywhere. So I think that not everybody's gotten the memo, but I think that's an important memo to have. Be prepared. Be well enough stocked that when the storm comes, it doesn't change anything that you do.
That's right. That's the goal.
Yeah.
It's just you hunker down, you ride it out. Maybe even, dare I say, enjoy it a little bit.
If you're prepared,
yeah,
it can be a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Let me break. And I think that's the gist of where we're at. So the primary objective of tonight's message is if you need to make an urgent communication, you can, provided that the folks that are on the radio are allowing for enough of a break between keys that you can get in there with a comment. And that's something that we never really practiced years ago, and it's something we've gotten a lot better at, and I think that we continue to improve. I have the quick key habit, and I'm probably no better than anybody else on the network when it comes to leaving a space between transmissions.
Right.
It's just something that's really hard to keep that in mind and intentionally leave that pause. But it's so important that we do, because it allows for that urgent communication. that if you need to make a quick call out that, hey, how long until you're at the bus stop? How long until you'll be here to pick me up? Do I have time to go get something at Lowe's, or do I have time to walk over to the store and get a refreshment, or should I just stay put because that would be faster? So those are things that we really have gotten a lot better at. We still have room to improve. And then the other thing is not everything constitutes an emergency. So if you've got severe weather where you're at, this is a big network and we encompass several states. You may have a thunderstorm blowing through where you're at, and it is blue skies and sunshine where I'm at. And in particular here in Georgia, very often I'll see these afternoon storms blow through, and I may get caught in the rain on the way home from work, only to pull in the driveway and there's not a trace of rain here that's happened all day long. So, now it did rain here today. We did get one of those brief little 30-minute thunderstorms. In fact, it knocked the power out, knocked a tree down, and took my neighbor's power out. So, it was a little bit of excitement here this afternoon, but power is back on next door. So, Miss Nancy's in good shape now, and everything's back to somewhat normal. We do have a tree to clean up. Looking for volunteers. Who wants to come help me clean a tree up this weekend? Everybody looks away.
I have my finger raised.
Rogers will be here.
All right.
Well, so what are the criteria that we think about and that we're talking about behind the scenes for starting or launching the ESN in a scenario like that?
So we do have a couple of people that are authorized to start the ESN. All right. Apparently, I'm one of them. But quite honestly, before I'm going to declare that we have an emergency and we're going to activate the ESN. Now, it's a very passive thing, right? So if the ESN is activated, and we've got rag chews and stuff going on, that can continue.
Right.
What we're saying is that we are monitoring and listening if anybody does have an emergency. So if the rag chew starts into a sequence of quick keys, our ESN operator may come in and remind them that we are under an emergency standby network, slow the roll, and make sure there's an opportunity for somebody to key up.
Leave a little
between.
space. Yep.
Just leave a little space. So, that's there's a handful of us that are authorized to start an ESN network. If I felt like I had a reason to, I'd probably call Gary and make sure he's on board with me. The others that have that authority would be Ronnie up in Chattanooga, and Ronnie would make the call as to determine whether it's system-wide or if it's just isolated to the northern core.
Yes.
All right. So if they get weather sometimes in that
they have
region,
their own thing there. Yeah.
They really do. And so a lot of times people ask, why don't we do Skywarn on the entire network? And let me break, and we'll come to that. I resist Skywarn on the GMRS network for one primary reason, and that is the amateur radio community does Skywarn, and they do it so well. The last thing that I want to do is crowd their space and diminish what they're capable of. So if we started a Skywarn network on North Georgia GMRS, our coverage area is so big that we may have severe weather in the Atlanta area, and there's nothing going on in Columbus, and there's nothing going on in Athens, and there's nothing going on in Woodstock or Bartow County or Dalton. So, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have such a large footprint, whereas a lot of these amateur radio Skywarn operations are running off of one or maybe two or three repeaters.
Yes.
So they're much more local, and the information is more timely. I think the reporting, they have a well-oiled machine, and I don't want to do anything that might ever diminish that. But what we've done in the Chattanooga region is because they have so many holes in their amateur radio repeater coverage, is we fill in those holes with our linked repeater network in that region. So we can convey messages more efficiently in GMRS than in some cases they can in the amateur radio. So we work in cooperation with the existing amateur radio Skywarn network in the Chattanooga region. And that's why we separate that and keep that its own, is because, you know, if they're having a weather event in Chattanooga, it's got nothing to do with the weather in Dahlonega.
Yep.
It's got no bearing on what's going on in Woodstock or Blue Ridge or Marietta or any place else that we might be operating. So we isolate the northern core and let them operate in an isolated environment so that Skywarn event or that weather event can be handled. If the emergency is something other than weather and it warrants having the entire network engaged or involved, and that's the whole point of ESN, is to listen to see if there's any trouble and be available to respond if there is. So we will most likely maintain the entire network for ESN activations and yet still continue to separate the network for Skywarn activations.
Yeah, good. So weather is a reason that we might activate that.
And it would be severe weather. If we've got
Right.
if we've got a tornado that breaks out in Noonan, I'm probably not going to activate the ESN, because I mean, if it's an isolated event, chances are we've got it covered and handled anyway.
Yep.
But if we think that there's going to be a block of tornadoes that roll through at 2:00 in the morning,
across a huge swath of our listening area,
yeah,
that's a different story.
That's definitely one for which we would want the ESN activated.
Or if there's a large wildfire that's looking like it might be out of control, and again, that may impact a large part of our area.
Yeah, that is a good example.
That's another scenario outside of just, you know, weather.
So if you are in a situation and you feel like an ESN network is warranted and you want to be sure that somebody will be monitoring, you got a couple of options, right? All right, the first one is phone a friend. Hey, we got some weather coming in, and if it gets dicey up here, I'd like to know that you're going to be monitoring. Are you going to be monitoring? Or are you going to disconnect all of your antennas
Right.
to protect yourself from the lightning?
There's that.
So if you're in the disconnect my antennas crowd, you're kind of disconnected also from being able to help out as an ESN operator. That's break. But you're also disconnected from being able to make an emergency call if stuff happens. And of course, you can reconnect your antennas to do that. But I mean, is that what you're going to do in the moment of crises, when the panic sets in? But that's another topic. It's another level of preparedness. And if you're just not there, then we make incremental improvements to our stations a little bit at a time to get there.
Well, and that's where the topic of, and you mentioned it, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but that's where redundancy comes in, right? And they can talk about that. They do talk about that on the Rabbit Hole Net, that if a GMRS radio is all you've got, you're putting a lot of weight on that.
Right.
Cell phone, satellite phone, GMRS radio, amateur radio. There are other methods that hopefully you're building some of that redundancy into your communications plan.
Yeah, but that's only part of it. The other part of it is who are you going to communicate with?
Well, that too.
And so
and
I
are
think
they
that,
online and accessible?
And I think that's important. So if you know that there's a storm coming through the area, I don't think it's unreasonable for you to call your buddy either on the radio or on the phone or what have you, and say, hey, what do you have? What are your expectations for this event that's coming through, and what's your availability going to be? Are you going to be on the air, or you will be monitoring?
Yep.
Or are you going to be in the basement? So I mean, and if that's the case, if somebody feels like they need to be in the basement, do that. Do what you think is the safest course of action for you, but also if you can arrange for or know that somebody's going to be available, that's the same thing as the ESN network. So if you've got somebody who can be monitoring and looking out for you, you can be looking out for them. Then that's the buddy system is a good way, a good alternative to the ESN network.
And everything that we're describing, the behavior, the practice, the exercises are what Dana refers to when he says practice the plan.
That's right. And
have that plan, but practice that plan. Be familiar with that plan.
And I think practice is important. And one of the things that we we often, so many times we have, because we all have family members, right? As GMRS radio operators, we have family members that are license covers. But in how many families do you only ever hear one person from that family come on the air? And maybe that's fine. Like, so for instance, if your family isn't on the network, but your family does engage in simplex communications, because you're out in the woods hiking, you're camping, you're fishing, you're on the lake with a boat, you're on a farm and you're using the radio to communicate across the property. If you're doing those things in simplex, then you're covered, because everyone who's using the radio gains familiarity, understands how to change the channel, understands how to put the zone back, understands how to adjust volume on and off, key locks, and all of these features that our radios have, some very basic training. But if you just do that once, and it's been a year since anybody's touched the radio, let's break. And it's been a year since anyone's touched the radio, and now you have an emergency. Well, that one time was great, but they're not going to be familiar or comfortable. So I think that it's important that we regularly engage in radio activities and operations, so that when the time comes that you need to get on the air, all of your family members are reasonably competent and comfortable with using the radio. Now, whether they get the lingo right, I don't care. If they can't remember the call sign, I don't care. If you're on the radio and you're communicating with a family member and they get the call sign goofed up, you can correct that. You can offer the call sign on their behalf. You can do a number of things to help train and make things work out. And the other thing is, if you hear a new operator on the radio and they're making mistakes, be a coach rather than a critic.
Yeah, that's right.
And help them to get past those mistakes. So, do you think we have things covered?
I think that's a pretty good amount to say from here. We should start running down the roster and see what other thoughts and insights from the field there are.
I think so, too. And I just want to say thanks to, we have maybe a third, half, I'm not sure, Dana could tell us, I don't know, of our ESN operators have checked in and identified themselves as ESN operators tonight. If that's something that you think that you want to take part in, some of the things that we're looking for is you need to have a quality radio station. All right, if all you have is an HD, then you're not going to be an ESN operator for us. Once you've got a quality radio station established, I need a personality, someone who can be calm and reassuring in the heat of the moment. We don't need to instill panic. We don't need to elevate the excitement. We need to de-escalate the tension whenever there's an ESN activation. So personality is also a factor, and just your ability to operate a radio and communicate effectively on the air. These are the qualifications and skills that we're looking for, and all of our ESN operators possess those to a degree, probably except for Bobby. But
he can only monitor.
He can, yeah, ICOM. So
I love you, Bobby.
But yeah, if that's something that interests you, then send an email to me or reach out to Dana, and we'll see if we can work you in. Now, it's not standby is the key, right? So it's a standby.
It's a
net.
passive. Yeah,
that's right. It's passive unless an event occurs. So if an event occurs during a standby activation net, then I expect all of our operators will get out of the way, clear the channel, and allow for that emergency communication traffic to get handled. And once that's done, limit your communication so that if there's further need for follow-up on that emergency, that the frequency is available. If you have a message to convey during that emergency, that's okay. Keep it short and to the point.
Yep. Get on, get off.
Once somebody's called in with an emergency, the rag chews are done. That stuff needs to kind of set aside. We can come back to it tomorrow or another day. But if there's an emergency that's called out during an ESN net, we need to get off the radio and make the frequency available. But if there's not been an emergency I encourage everyone to continue with the rag chews and the conversations. You can talk about the event that's going on. That's fine. I just want our ESN operators to be able to be there and monitor in case someone calls out with an emergency. So with those things in mind, let's go ahead and head to the top of our roster. Looks like we've got Chattanooga 84 is our first in line here. Jim is an ESN net control operator. So Jim, do you have any questions or comments for tonight's net?
WRKK69, Chattanooga 84, you're doing a great job tonight. I've enjoyed listening to it, and don't really have a lot to add except quick keying. I can tell you if I'm serving, I'm going to point that out because you need that space for people to be able to come in and to discuss their emergency. So be conscientious of quick keying. Back to you.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the biggest handicaps that I have, and a lot of us have, is that tendency to jump right back in there and respond immediately. We do need to slow the roll. I think we want to be careful that we're not so slow that we create anxiety, but at the same time, if you're jumping in there so fast that another person doesn't have an opportunity to comment their way in, that can be equally troublesome. So we need to find that balance where we're not creating anxiety with wasting a lot of airtime for someone to respond, but at the same time we do want to be able to allow for 2, 3, 4 seconds for somebody to comment in. You get into the 5 to 10 second range and people wonder if are you still there?
Yeah.
Did you drop off? Is your radio broken? Are you down in a gully somewhere? So the timing is we all have to kind of feel our way through that and figure out what's right. But really, we're just trying to keep the airwaves open long enough so that if somebody needs to key in between us, that there is a window for that. So good stuff, Jim. Thanks for that, and appreciate your service as an ESN net control operator. Next on our list, we have Chattanooga 260 Colt in Dalton. Colt, do you have any questions or comments for tonight's net?
Chattanooga 260 WSTM 494. Yeah, I don't know if you know, but I am a licensed ETC, which is Emergency Telecommunicator certification. I have my EMD, which is Emergency, I forget the exact words for that, but basically as a licensed medic, I have the ability to communicate life-saving medical procedures over radio. That would be CPR, stop and bleed, things of that nature. Also live bursts. I've done that once, I think, over the net.
Wow.
Also have my NIMS, my SIMS, and a couple of different things. But I will tell you, I've done that quite a bit, especially for the S6 shop when I was in the Guard. But going back to a couple of months ago, I will tell you how this kind of radio works very well and how it works the local county side. There was a fake K-rescue call that went out, which is probably the same person jamming our net, which is what we believe it is. And during that situation, it was very humbling and beautiful to see how ham radio net, which operates just like this, turned into an emergency net. And if you haven't heard that of what happened, if you haven't seen the audio of how that occurred, it's on YouTube. But during that process, the local EMA organizations got on the radio and took over that until they were able to get the information they needed. But there's not a lot of real emergencies in this world. There's very, very, very few real emergencies in this world. And cool, calm, and collected. I think there's a great team here that people that can step in and take over if needed. But yeah, anyways, this is Chattanooga 260, WSTM 494 is clear.
Yeah, and I tell you that is the challenge that we face these days. It's unprecedented. In years and years and years of being a part of the North Georgia GMRS Network, I've never seen the kind of intentional interference that we've seen, in the last 6-8 months. It's frustrating and it's maddening, and it gets in the way. I mean, this interference happens during Skywarn nets, during Skywarn activations, during during all kinds of inappropriate times. It's one thing, if somebody wants to interfere with an individual or a group that's engaged in radio communications, but when you start interfering with emergency services, that's a whole different level of wrong kind of person. And we really don't have very much of that in the grand scheme of things, but a little bit sure does go a long way towards ruining the mood and ruining the fun that we all have. Because one of the things that I take pride in is as a radio network, I love the fact that I can have the radio on in front of my family. Except now I have to worry about somebody that might come on and vomit all over the air. So that's really disenfranchising. It's really disheartening. We will at some point be able to make appropriate action, and we are collecting data every time it happens. We record transmissions on this network, and we have an extensive library of recordings at this point. We have a lot of material, so when the time comes to hand all that over, I think that the authorities will be able to effectively and appropriately handle the situation. So just be confident that this isn't something that we're ignoring, and it's something I think that is a potential everywhere, and it's clear that these individuals are interfering with more than just North Georgia GMRS. It's also affecting the amateur radio community, and it's affecting emergency services in a small way as well. So we're on it. We're not there yet, but each time that guy comes on, we get a little more data, and at some point we'll have what we need. All right, Colt. With that, we'll continue on. Before I do, want to acknowledge your comment about some of your emergency qualifications. That's very cool stuff. Let us know, and if you want to be a part of things, we'll take a look at it. And at some point, we might even have a slot available. Rome 1-2, Mark in Rome. Mark was on his way home. Let's see if he's made it there by now. Mark, do you want to come on the air and talk about your ESN responsibilities?
Good evening, everybody. This is Mark in Rome 1-2. We did have that one activation that I took part in, and it was a little nerve-wracking for me at first because it was the first time, but had plenty of good material from Dana, all the numbers and everything that I needed, and I think it went pretty well, and able to man it throughout the late hours of the night. So overall, a great first time, and looking forward to maybe being able to serve again. Let me break. In general, for emergency comms, I just would say a couple things. First of all, get the best equipment that you can afford, an antenna, know how to operate your equipment, know its capabilities, and then secondly, always know where you are. Have situational awareness, especially a lot of these cases come up where you're mobile and you need help. So knowing your location, being able to communicate that clearly and quickly so that you could get help is very important. So, if you're traveling, pay attention. A lot of us zone out when we're mobile and thinking about work, other things, but pay attention to where you are. The location you get on the radio, say you're in a remote area, you could give say I'm 2 miles north of the Big Chicken on Highway 41. It's very important to be able to relay that. And that's all I've got. Back to you, Ned.
That's a great comment, and it's something that we really should have mentioned. But it's so important to know where you are.
Situational awareness.
Yes. when you're driving, when you're a passenger in the vehicle, you should be paying attention to the signs, the cross streets. You should have some awareness of the mile marker,
Exit numbers.
Exit numbers. You should be aware of towns and you know, there's a sign every time you go over a river. There's a sign that says such and such river. You know, just read that sign and kind of park that in your brain. And a lot of times, if you you can read something passively, right? All right. How many times have you looked at a speed limit sign, and then a half a mile later wondered what's the speed limit here?
Guilty. Yep.
575.
Yep.
I mean, the speed limit changes.
Oh, it changes so many times.
Yeah, between your place and here.
Yeah.
I don't know what the speed limit is most of the time. It could be 45. It could be 75, 70. And at any place in between. So having some awareness, just pay attention to those signs as you go by, even if you're a passenger, even if you're just following the GPS. All right, if the phone gets knocked out of the cradle and is lost somewhere in a car, and you have a wreck, and your car is calling 911 for you, it probably knows where you are. But it'd be really helpful if you could say that I'm on the east side of the road, or that I'm down the embankment, or that I'm up the hill behind these trees. If you have that awareness, you can help the emergency responders tremendously, because it's completely conceivable that if you've gone down the bank, they can't see you from the roadway, and they could drive right past where you are.
That's true. That's true. That's a good point.
So,
good point, Mark.
Having that awareness can be very, very important. It's something that we should teach our kids and our spouses to constantly be aware. Julie's pretty good of having awareness on the interstates, but you know, when we're on state highways and stuff like that, you know, if I ask her what the name of that road we just crossed was, she oftentimes doesn't know. So,
you know, too, Justin, if you're traveling with family and you've got a carload of family, they all have their heads in their electronics.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll pull a little thing every once in a while where I'll catch them all on their electronics. I'll take the exit and just park, come off the exit and park, and go, where are we? Yeah. Which way do we need to go? And it starts to bring some situational awareness to the car,
mm-hmm.
your group in the car. But I've done that more than once. Maybe it's cruel, but it made a point. It made a point.
That is good. That is, yeah. And I think that just having those conversations can go a long way toward making everybody in the car kind of passively participate in some active situational awareness. It doesn't take a lot. I mean, and Mark had mentioned the Big Chicken, and that is such a big landmark, but there are so many other landmarks in the region. And, you know, it's not hard to say that, you know, I'm on 575 and I'm 3/4 of a mile past Biggins with a flat tire. You know, but if you don't remember going by it, you can't really call that out. Sure. And if you're driving with tunnel vision, you just may not even have that awareness yourself. So it's a very important thing to have that awareness. And it's an important thing, situational awareness, not only when you're driving, but I mean, if you're hiking, if you're out at Amicalola Falls, how far up the stairs are you? And if you're on one of the other trails that aren't around the falls, you know, which trail did you take? Because there's 5 or 6 of them there. And if you didn't take a look and see what the name of the trail was before you started walking down it, and then you slip and fall, or you encounter wildlife, or you have some other problem, you may have great cell coverage, but if you can't tell them where you are, it might take them longer to find you. And especially if you're trying to call for help on a radio in a situation like that, it's really vitally important that you know where you are, because we can't triangulate the position of a radio like they sometimes can a cell phone if there's coverage. So good stuff, Mark. Glad you brought that up. With that, let's see. There it is. Where is Mark? There he is. So let's go next to Dallas 6-4. Dallas in Dallas 6-4. Josh in Dallas. Josh is also an ESN operator. Josh, do you have any comments for tonight's net?
Thank you, Justin. This is Josh in Dallas, WRXV 696, Dallas 64. All great information provided. Definitely know your surroundings, know where you're at. On the quick keying, also adding into that, on the repeaters and on the network, when you press the button, give it a second before you start talking. You may have vital information that you're trying to give out that nobody may hear because the network's still, or the repeater's still trying to accept you keying in. So definitely give a little bit of a delay there. Let me break. And also, in times of an emergency, your adrenaline's going to be pumping, and you're going to be trying to rattle off and get information out as fast as possible. Make sure you slow down your talking just a little bit. That way, if somebody's out there trying to help you, they can actually understand what you're saying. You know, it's a key thing that we get as much information as we can. That way, we can get you the help you need. Other than that, great net so far, great information, and I'll turn it back to you, Net Control.
Yeah, that is something we need to remember on a linked repeater network. When you hit the PTT, if you're already talking, then we're already not hearing you. So we do need to pause briefly in order for the linked repeater network to build all of those links. It doesn't take long, but it does take a half a second or so. So if you can do the 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, you're golden. If you can do that in your mind when you hit the key before you begin to speak, that will ensure that the person on the other end hears all of your message. Can't tell you how many times during check-ins we hear, and this is why we ask for your FCC call sign first. All right, if we miss part of the call sign, but we get your TAC number, we can still get you logged, because once we key in your region and your TAC number, then everything else in our log populates automatically. It's got your name, it's got your location that you signed up with, and it's got your call sign in there. So we ask for the call sign first, and that way if you quick keyed and we miss part of the call sign, that's okay.
Yep.
But it bites us because we're so tuned into ignoring the call sign and waiting for the TAC number that if we have a guest check in, we've already ignored his call sign.
It gets me, yeah.
And so we have to ask for it again. So it's a double-edged sword, but that is one of the effects of a linked network is it's very, very important that you key the radio, pause briefly before you begin speaking, and then jump in there with your message. So great reminder. Thank you for that, Josh. Next on our list is another ESN net control operator, is Atlanta 557. Mr. Ed Fong, Ed from Kennesaw. Ed, do you have any comments for tonight's net?
Well, thank you, Justin. Yes, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be one of the ESN controllers. In addition to all the great ideas and comments, so far I would add, make sure that you have a plan. Make sure that it is a multi-layered plan, and that it's communicated before you need to use it. For me, I think of it as a wedding cake with different layers. The top layer is going to be the cell phone. We all have it. We can use it to call, text, or even FaceTime. Below that is going to be GMRS. The cell phone is going to rely on a cell network or internet. GMRS is going to rely on our repeater network. Let me break. So hopefully our repeaters will stay up past the emergency, but if it doesn't, you need another layer, and that may be a sat phone, but that's expensive to have as a backup device. For me, that next layer down is going to be Meshtastic. If you don't know about Meshtastic, reach out to me. I'll tell you everything I know about it, but it is a tool. It's not the first tool I'm going to reach for. It is limited. It's limited to basic text, but it might be the last tool that I need to use. So again, my point is, have a plan, communicate it, and then have it be multi-layered so that if the top layer doesn't work, you get another one. That's it for me.
Well, that's a great suggestion. Having a plan, that's something we often overlook, and it's something we should sit down with our family and talk about from time to time. Is work out some scenarios, work out some general concepts, and work them out in such a way that they're adaptable, right? So that we can talk about what if what if there's a fire? What are we going to do if the house catches on fire? You know, we can talk about the tools that we have to deal with the fire. But if you can't get that fire dealt with in like 30 seconds, if the fire extinguisher doesn't knock it down, if you have one of the fire blankets and that doesn't take care of it, if you try to put the grease fire out on the stove and it spreads to the countertops, if there's a situation like that, it might be more important to just get out than to try to control something that has become out of control. So we can talk about what to do in various situations, but we also want to have a plan that is adaptable, so that maybe it's not a fire, but maybe there's natural gas leaking in the house and we need to evacuate. Maybe there's some other thing that causes us to just need to get out of the house and quickly. So maybe somebody has come in and we need to find a way of escape. So having a plan and having some flexibility in that plan so that you're covered under a number of scenarios is the best way to do that. So good stuff, Ed. Thank you for your comments. Next on our list tonight is McDonough 22 Tim in Stockbridge. Tim, I understand that you were the recipient of an emergency call recently, and I would love to hear a little bit about that, how that call came about, and how that call got handled. Are you able to talk about that, Tim?
Yes, I can talk about it a little bit. Appreciate the question there, and but it was really not that big of a deal. There was a guy up on the northeast side of town, somewhere maybe around the Tacoma here. I can't remember when. Evidently involved in some kind of a fender bender type thing. Fortunately, there were no injuries that I know of. I was just monitoring the radio and heard a call out for any station, please respond. I have an emergency call. Don't have a. Well, he didn't say though. I had to kind of assume he didn't have a cell phone or his cell phone battery was dead or whatever. Never did establish that as an absolute fact, but anyway, I just had a little bit of experience with this in the past. Let me break. So I knew you just need to get some basic information, and and he needed to call out to emergency. And as you said before, I couldn't call 911 from down here in Henry County, so I had to start looking up a number for the county that he said he was in, which I forget. And this is where I had an assist, and I apologize to the person that helped me with that. But while I was trying to look up the emergency number for that particular county, another station came in and already had that number available, and but I had all the directional information and the other information, so I asked him if he wanted to take it from there, and he said no, I had all the other information. So anyway, we originally got him some help. Actually, by the time I was on the phone with the police in that county, he radioed back, and I was actually two-waying with the radio and the policeman on the telephone, and he said a patrol car was pulling up. So I don't know if the other car involved in the accident had called 911 or what, but anyway, it all got resolved, and there were no injuries, and I don't think it was a major accident of any kind. But anyway, I do have some additional comments if you want to throw it back to me, if you have any response to what I just said.
Oh, definitely, Tim. We'll come back to that. But yeah, I think that's a perfect example and a great training opportunity for what the ESN is supposed to be. And even though that wasn't necessarily an ESN activation, the reason we have roughly 24 ESN operators is so that it's not up to one person to monitor continuously. The chances of one of the ESN operators being on the air by having a large group of them is significantly greater than if it were just 3 or 4. And even if you're not an ESN operator in a situation like that, most of us have access to the internet. Maybe you don't all the time. I really hate trying to Google things on my phone. I really enjoy using a computer for things internet network related. I dislike using my phone. So, but nonetheless, we have access to a wealth of information, and if you can step in and help out in a situation like that, and even in Tim's case, if you're aware of the county where an incident occurred, and you can look up that number quickly, or maybe you know it, or maybe you can just take over the call, and well, I'm in that same county, I'll call and be able to reach the correct 911 center and handle it from there. Cooperate, coordinate, and remember that the ultimate goal is to get whatever that circumstance needs, get the assistance that they need, whatever emergency service that might be, whether it's police, whether it's a fire, whether it's an ambulance, or something else. So be mindful of what your capabilities are, and if somebody's able to pitch in, hand it over. You've still done your role and you played your part. And you still get all the accolades for being, an important part of that, because even though you've initiated that response to that trouble call, letting somebody else finish that can still be an important thing. So very good stuff, Tim. Let's move on to what else did you have for us?
Yes, sir. Just a couple of other points that I would like to address, having to do with general radio etiquette and courtesy. A couple of other people have mentioned the quick key thing with regard to when you key up to talk. You've already explained with all the repeat. You need to count a couple of beats before you start speaking. There's another side to that also, is when you're in the middle of a conversation and you're going back and forth. When the other guy unkeys, wait 3 or 4 seconds before you key up with your response, to allow someone that does have an emergency, who's stuck out in the rain with a flat tire or who knows what, or had an accident or whatever, or anyone that has an urgent or emergency need to call, let them have a little break to get in between and say comment or emergency or break or something like that. Speaking of break, let me break quickly. Experience I had just not that long ago. I had programmed a radio for one of my friends down here in McDonough, and was going to take it to him. I said, I'll give you a call when I'm on my way, when I'm bringing the radio back home. Well, I had the radio programmed. I was getting ready. I woke up, and I said, I'm going to take this radio over there to him. So I keyed up, turned on my radio, and there was a couple of guys talking on there. And so I couldn't call out and tell him I was fixing to leave on my way. So I still had to get dressed, take care of some other duties and stuff like that. And I swear it was a good 30 minutes, and I could not get in between those two guys that were rag chewing on the radio to call out and let my friend know that I was on the way to his house with the radio. And I wound up driving all the way to his house. They were still talking. Quick key in between the conversations all the way over there. I could not get a call in edgewise, and so I wound up just banging on the door, and this particular person is disabled and has to takes him a while to get downstairs. So it was a bit frustrating that happens. I'm just going to throw this in as my personal opinion. Let me break. I don't think the word rag chew should be even a thing on the GMRS radio here. Come on, guys. You're supposed to identify within 15 minutes. If you've talked long enough to identify, you need to shut up, say your call sign, and get off the air for a while. It's okay if you get off for 5 minutes and then come back, but give somebody else a chance. Some of this stuff is getting a little bit aggravating. And also, we got a lot of new guys that will call out and say, call out for ATL so-and-so, and they get no response, and then you're sitting there, you want to make a call out, but they never come on and clear the air and say, negative contact, call sign, blah, blah, blah. People need to brush up on their radio etiquette. There's a lot of stuff going on the airways lately, and I don't know if it's all new guys. I don't sit here and write down TAC numbers and stuff like that. But there's a lot of disrespect on the airwaves here. People are just not respecting the other people.
Get off
and
my
they don't
lawn.
know radio etiquette, and they need to learn it. And
Definitely.
Go back and read the MOUs. Sorry I'm sounding a little bit irritated tonight, but remembering some of these stuff that I'm sitting here listening to on the radio lately,
He's getting a little bit,
just
getting a little bit
gets me a
toasty.
little bit upset. So I'm going to throw it back to net control, and I'll take my licks.
We hear you, Tim, and I tell you,
no licks, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time Julie and I we were down in Orlando at Hamcation, and one evening we were between places and probably lost. It seems like everything's a toll road.
Oh yeah,
around
Orlando.
Yeah. Trying to figure out how to get someplace without going on another stupid toll, and they're not the same tolls. It's like a different tolling company. So anyway, I hate that. But we were listening to a conversation between a couple of users, and it was a fun conversation, and I wanted to make some comments, and we're trying to check in between these fools on Zello. Well, if guys are quick keying Zello,
there's no chance.
No
chance.
It was so frustrating, and I really wanted to get in the middle of that conversation, and there just was no possibility that was going to happen, and I was really disappointed in that. But at the same time, if it weren't for Zello, I wouldn't have known there was a conversation I wanted to get in on. So we're gonna miss that app. It's unfortunate that we don't have access to it anymore. It's definitely going to be a hole in our radio experience, especially for those of us that are a marginal coverage. Some people use Zello just to monitor with, to see if there's something they want to get on the air with, and that's unfortunate. We'll figure something out. It's just not going to be quickly. But good stuff, Tim, and you're right. It is important, if you're engaged in a conversation with any length to it, that you make a point of making sure that there's an opportunity for somebody to break in. For that scenario, just like you talked about, you're just trying to let somebody know that you're on the way. Sure, I suppose a cell phone would work in that scenario, but why can't we use the radio? We're radio enthusiasts, and just because somebody's on the air, they don't own that. We need to share the airwaves, and if we can make a little hole in between our transmissions, then we can make that opportunity for somebody to comment in and be able to address that. And in your case, you only needed to convey a very short message, and the rag-chew could very easily have resumed as soon as you got out of the way. So I completely get what you're saying, and I could hear your aggravation as you were telling the story. But that's all right. We understand. We get it. Anything else, Tim?
No, thank you, Justin. I think I've said all I need to say for tonight. But, the good net, and everybody's had some really good comments, and I appreciate your response there. So I'll throw it back to net control. I'm clear.
All right.
Net control.
Net control, go ahead.
This is Atlanta 785. I was listening to your comments, and I have to agree with that other gentleman as well. I ran into the same situation where I couldn't get anything in sideways. But I do have a question. Question about Zello. Is Zello gone for good now with North Georgia?
I'm reluctant to say that it's gone for good. All right. We are exploring some emergency service options with Zello. It looks like there's some. It's a little bit gray, a little bit shady, as to whether or not what we do fits in with the terms of service that they allow for that function. And the other problem with that function is it limits the number of users that can be active. We would have to submit a limited roster of Zello users, which means it couldn't be available for every member. And so I don't want to say it's gone forever, but from what I can see right now, I don't know that Zello has a plan that fits what we do. We are not throwing in the towel, and Zello is still on the table in terms of what we might do going forward, but I just know that everything that Zello offers that does fit what we do is expensive enough that it would result in us having to increase membership dues, and we really don't want to do that. So we're going to continue to look and try. We're trying hard to find a service that fits with what we need and allows us the control that we require, and will allow us to provide that. Alternatively, we're talking about a streaming service that would allow people to monitor. You just wouldn't be able to call back in. So that's half of the equation. It might be all the best we can do. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't have a better answer than that. So I wouldn't necessarily nail the lid on the coffin for Zello, but I don't see that as being likely going forward. So how's that for not answering your question?
Actually, you answered the question very eloquently. I thank you very much. Part of the reason I was asked was I really keep on the phone. So it sounds like I really don't. Does it come up with something else? It could very well be much better than that. So that was my reason for asking. I miss Zello, but it is what it is, and you folks have been doing a marvelous job. Thank you. This is WRCG 694 Atlanta 785. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate that very in-depth answer.
Well, I appreciate that sentiment, Rick, and hopefully we can come up with something. I just don't want to make any promises because, like I say, most of what we've found has some specific GMRS restrictions to it. So that kind of narrows the field significantly. And then the remainder of the things that we found are either too open or not open enough. So that's the challenge that we face, and we're still searching and we're still looking. We're also talking about what maybe we can develop in house. I'm not sure if that's how much of an option that even is, but these are all things that are part of conversations that are going on behind the scenes. And the other thing we have to remember is that the folks, the engineering folks that are engaged in the search for a Zello replacement are, we're all volunteers here. So this is in addition to day jobs and family activities and stuff like that. So nobody has wide open time to just devote to the research and the sorting out the various rules of various communications platforms that are out there. So we're working on it is the best answer I can give you. Next on the roster, I have Atlanta 403. Bobby is at the Vortex. Now, Bobby, I would like to... Bobby is an ESN operator as well. But before we go down the ESN road, I want to tap into your experience and your training and get you to talk just a little bit about your activity with RACES and the other county emergency service functions that you've been engaged in over the years. The RACES is an amateur radio oriented emergency services group, but alternative communications is really what gets so many of these radio clubs involved in their county emergency services. And so, Bobby, you want to talk a little bit about the emergency the emergency communications that that you've practiced with some of these other amateur radio groups?
Yeah, good evening, folks. I'm not directly involved with any of the amateur radio groups and their races or airy stuff over here. I'm more involved with CERT, which is backup to the first responders, and we do some radio stuff, but that's mostly just internal operations. It's not really having to do with, in general, emergency communications. Yeah. But, yeah, I haven't really gotten involved in the amateur end of things over here yet.
So there are a number of emergency organizations that focus on amateur radio communications with county and state emergency functions. There's a group called Georgia Oxcom, which is basically an amateur radio arm of statewide emergency communications, and this is a group that's geared towards if there's a large scale catastrophe that happens within the state, they're here, and their function is to provide additional and backup communications channels to state agencies should they have to deal with some large-scale event. So it allows for a level of interoperability that may not be there if every agency involved doesn't have the right channels programmed into their radios. Certainly, we can stick a volunteer in with a group of officials that can communicate via amateur radio and be able to convey messages that way. So there's all kind of options, there's all kinds of functions, and if there's something that you're passionately interested in, there are tools and resources available for you to get trained and licensed and proficient in any of a number of emergency services. Let me break. No, I think, Bobby, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the primary roles that your group serves is if there's an event like a festival or a parade or a some big town event, you guys provide alternative communications and parking services and just general help with the county in terms of if somebody needs a golf cart to be able to get a ride someplace, if a handicapped person needs some extra assistance, if things of that nature, at some of these larger events, you can provide a greater awareness through your volunteers for those services. Is that about what CERT is about? Am I close?
Yeah, that's some of the stuff that we do. We do traffic control and crowd control for like the Christmas parade. That's our main event, and a few little events during the year. Our main function, and my main function on the team I'm on, is rehab. We have what we call a rehab truck, which is an old ambulance, and we go to fire scenes where the fire department will call us out if they plan on being on scene for a while, and we provide like water and refreshments and a place for the firemen to take a break away from the actual action. And that's our main job as CERT rehab. But we also have a chainsaw team and a search and rescue team, which is very, very active. And there's a few different angles you can go with CERT. But yeah, traffic control, crowd control, that's one of our functions too within CERT. We're really back up to the first responders. Mostly White County Fire Department is who we're really backing up. But we help out the police and ambulance and whoever we can. That's our job.
Good stuff. Well, all of those things will help to serve to make you a better ESN network net control operator. So good stuff. Bobby, did you have anything else you want to talk about before we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the incident you were talking about and Tim was talking about, I did hear bits and pieces of that incident that day. Remember, I can only monitor. So I do listen a lot. But he handled that, from what I heard, he handled that very professionally and kept his cool and did everything right with that. And I do agree with some of what, a lot of what Tim said about the people quit keying and getting used to the whole way we do things on the radio. Like I've said since the beginning, listen, and learn the way it should be done. And a lot of the new people are getting in there, and they're quick keying.
I bet Bobby longs for the days when our biggest concern was people chunking.
Yeah, they just got to learn the radio etiquette. Yeah. And I guess that comes with time and listening to the CBS Place of Excellence.
Well, that's one thing that is a constant is new folks, and there's always, I mean, no matter how new you are. In fact, I think I saw 2 new membership applications come through today. Now, it'll probably be tomorrow before they get a TAC number assigned, but we don't necessarily even require a TAC number for someone to participate in the net. So there's new people happening. I mean, we get a new member application rolls through like almost every other day. So we're gonna get a couple hundred new members through the course of each year, and sometimes we get a lot more than that. Sometimes we don't get that many, but as an average, I'd say 200, 250 a year is pretty typical.
Oh, I got you. You all right?
Yeah, right in the middle of my throat.
We call that the frog.
Oh yeah, right there. So, sorry about that, everyone. But so there's always new people, and I think when it comes to that, it's easy to get aggravated when people don't know the protocol, they don't know the etiquette. But we need to just be a good coach and help to instill better practices and habits. And when it comes to bad habits, I think I'm no one to call anyone out because I have plenty of my own bad habits when it comes to radio. It happens, and if you catch me quick keying and performing poorly on the radio, call me out on it. I mean, that's we're all human. And let me break. Oh, the mute switch is getting a good workout tonight. We're all human. We're all subject to that, and I think it's good to get humbled every now and then. So, all right, Bobby, good stuff. Let's continue on. Next, we have Dwayne, Atlanta 933, also an ESN operator. Dwayne, do you have any comments for tonight's net?
Yeah, Justin, I do. Like Bobby, I am a member of the CERT team here in Cherokee County. I've been doing that for about 10 years, and since becoming a ham operator, I am a member of the ARES team. That's the Amateur Radio Emergency Services, so I can talk a little bit about that. But we have weekly nets for the county, for Cherokee County, and then we also have weekly nets for the ARES region. So I'm in the Northwest region. So each region, they have training on those nets on a weekly basis. They also do volunteer work. They'll provide communications in the Georgia mountains for the Georgia Death Race and Georgia Jewel, which is a multi-day event, and set up the radio to. There's no cell service, so that they shoot the radio waves over the mountains and provide communications and first aid information and things of that nature. And they also do simulated emergency drills. There's one coming up in October, and they're actually simulating an earthquake drill here in the next week or so. So that's just some of the things that they're involved in. Let me break. And I know when Dana was putting together the details of the ESN, We were talking a lot about some of the resources available of the emergency operations manuals and binders and things of that, and Dana had access to that. So the network's in really good hands. Justin, I think you and Dana and everyone else involved has done a really great job. The ESN's actually been activated just a few months ago. There was a storm system came through and a tornado on the ground near David's house, Dallas 20, and the net was activated, and we were able to check in on him, make sure he was okay. So it's already been activated. It's got good bones. Every bit of the advice tonight that's been given is spot on, and I think we're all in good hands. So great job. And I'm going to go ahead and sign out of here. I got to go get to work early in the morning. So carry on. Great net, gentlemen. Land 933, WRZT 646. I'll be clear.
Good stuff, Dwayne. And all of these amateur radio groups that are out there, providing auxiliary communications and emergency services, and the last thing that I want to do is to diminish or take away, from any of those activities, because these are well-established groups, and sometimes they've been in place for years, and sometimes they've established themselves with a rapport and reputation. They have relationships that they've established over a period of time, and the last thing that I want is for anybody to think that North Georgia GMRS is going to step in and take over, or change, or diminish, or affect those kind of communications. That's not at all what we want to do. What we want to do is we want to take people who are typically monitoring and available on the radio, on this network, and put them in a position so that if there's trouble out there, we can handle it as effectively as these other radio groups do, without taking members or people away from those services. So I am sensitive to the fact that there are already programs and systems and things in play. Skywarn is one that I very deeply appreciate. In times that we've had tornado activity within the region, being able to tune in and listen to Skywarn nets within my local area has been very, very enlightening and very, very good, timely information. And sometimes many, many minutes after I hear an event reported on Skywarn net, I will hear it also reported on WSB TV. So it's the same information. It's just fresh and raw, and it's right from the eyewitness. Let me break. So that's good stuff, Dwayne. Thank you for bringing that to us, and hopefully we can enhance that coverage and not ever diminish from what's already being done by many of those emergency radio organizations that already exist. No intention of replacing or taking things from anyone. We just want to do what we can within this network to improve the value of the network and hopefully make things safer for all of the members. Good stuff. Have a good evening, Dwayne, and I'll see you at work in the morning. Atlanta 250, the ESN boss high atop Mount Olympus. Dana, do you have any questions or comments for tonight's net?
Well, when have you ever known me not to have a comment? But I'll start off by saying good evening to you, Justin, Mike, Gary, and definitely Rogers. You all do a fantastic job on the regional net every Thursday night. And it's a great topic tonight. I just wanted to make a general comment to where a lot of this, the ESN really got its roots from. And it's something that Dr. Fong, or Ed Fong, Atlanta 557, had mentioned about the layered responses that you should have. And one that I thought he could have fit in between, the cell phone and right before mesh was simplex. Let me break.
You know, all of our efforts on the Friday night at 9 is about communications. It's just putting it in a more of a fun fashion. But Simplex, we push this whole Simplex footprint map, knowing who your Simplex buddies are, because of situations like, let's say, the repeater network goes down, and the ESN is, back to grassroots. It's the Simplex is what's going to make the difference. Let me break. And, where this all sort of got emulated from was a couple, and I think Helene was one of them, but there was a couple of situations prior to Helene to where channel 18462625 on Simplex was the monitored channel for emergency traffic during the impending events. Let me break. So just don't discount Simplex. Not that we ever would, but I know with all the talk about the ESN and the network and things like that, there might come the opportunity to where we have to downgrade a little bit, go back to some grassroots, and try to reach out to our Simplex buddy, because cell phones are down, the network is down, and that is all we have. So just didn't want that to leave everybody's frontal lobe during an emergency. So that being said, I'm going to turn it right back over to you guys. Great net.
Oh, very good stuff. And I just wanted to point out. You're not going out. Oh, I'm hitting the mute switch instead of the PTT button. I must be getting tired. The good stuff, Dana. And I just wanted to point out. And maybe we can put Dana's picture back up there for a moment. For those that don't recognize, this is in fact Dana. I know that most of you have seen him a number of times, but probably never with his eyes fully open. So if there was any question, this is actually a picture of Dana. It's not the Magoo picture that you're used to. So just wanted to make sure that people understood that that is indeed Dana. But good stuff, Dana. And yeah, I think the layers of a plan of an emergency preparedness situation is really a good idea. It's not one that I've spent much time thinking about, but on the surface, that seems like that's where we need to be. All right, so first and foremost, it's the cell phone, right? Obviously, if you need to make an emergency call, there's no better tool that we have than making that call on a phone. The 911 service is excellent at being able to identify who you are, where you are, what you are, all of the W's that they need to be able to get service to you quickly. But if the cell network's down, if your phone is broken, if it's gone, if it's dead, and we need some other means of communication, Simplex might just be the answer. Meshtastic is also a way of conveying messages. Probably not going to be the first choice or the second choice, but it should be one of those layers. And I think that's something that, and if you don't know what Meshtastic is, just catch Ed on the radio one evening and say, hey, what is this Meshtastic I keep hearing about? Ed would be happy to tell you about what that is and how that works. But in a nutshell, it's unlicensed radio. It's low power, long range. And it's a means of sending text messaging, so you can convey a message through that. And I'll tell you, one of the things I like about that is that if you're in a situation where you don't want to make any noise, Meshtastic will let you convey message and data without making any noise. So that can be a very powerful tool if you're ever in that situation. If you've got somebody in the house and you need to be able to convey a message, Obviously, you don't want to be talking on radio, and you don't want your radio squawking back if you're trying to be stealthy and quiet. If you're trying to hide, maybe that's the better option. If you break out the cell phone and a text comes back to you and your phone chimes, that could be bad. So Meshtastic maybe, I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but certainly something to consider. So great points, and thanks for all of that.
And I was going to say, piggybacking off of Dana, what Dana's mentioned about Simplex, I think we all need to have two primary Simplex locations. One is, your home, obviously, but another may be what we call sweet spots, where you may have to go maybe a mile down the road, not too far, but it may be a little bit higher in elevation, and it may give you a lot further footprint. So that's what I do on Friday nights, and from Dunwoody, I was able to make contact with Dana 2 weeks ago in Mount Olympus. So that's about a 50 to 60 mile one-way trip there.
That's pretty impressive to do that in Simplex, but yeah, I like that idea of having, being able to make Simplex calls from the house is good. But there's a lot of value in knowing where you can also make Simplex contacts. So if you have to bug out, if you can't be there for whatever reason, and you have to be somewhere else, what are your communications options when you go somewhere else? And where might that be? Is it going to be a buddy's house? Can you make a Simplex contact from their backyard, from their front yard? Do you have to leave that house and make that contact from on top of the hill? These are all things that are worth exercising during the Simplex challenge, because what better opportunity would you have to test those locations and those capabilities? So
well, I'll throw a point in there for consideration that applies to me a lot, because I can't Simplex from home in Blue Ridge, and that point is, don't operate on the assumption that the only time you're going to need to use the radio in an emergency situation is at home, because it's not. You might be traveling to and from work, to and from vacation, to and from family or friend's house, and so, operating the radio and understanding what your capabilities are reach-wise away from home is, in my mind, it's up there in the priority of things. Where are the dead zones to avoid? Where are the sweet spots that Rogers is talking about, elevation-wise, or access to a repeater-wise? Practice away from home too.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
It goes into our kind of a preview to next week's net with go bags.
That's true.
And handhelds, carrying handhelds, and fanny packs, and all of that. That's next week's topic.
Are we going to do a show and tell together next week,
possible.
Gary?
It's possible.
You're going to bring yours, I'll bring mine?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think it's possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Break open a bag of radios, and
yeah,
that's
we're pre-announcing next week's net, maybe the earliest that we've been, a week in advance.
Well, I've been trying to make an announcement as we close the net as to what next week's topic's going to be.
That's true.
We've gotten better about that, but I don't think we're really quite where we need to be. So I think this is good. This is good conversation. So, all right, with that, let's continue on. Next, we have Atlanta 849, Pamela in Duluth. Pamela, do you have any questions or comments for tonight's net?
Well, gentlemen, I think this has been pretty well put together. I remember hearing about ESN, and I didn't know what was going on. I was like, what is the ESN net? So, and I heard bits and pieces, so I'm glad you pulled this as the topic for tonight. So, in listening, I just first want to say I was glad to hear Julie doing Julie's tips tonight. She did a really nice presentation on being emergency prepared. But I would like to see a list of the ESN operators so that I might print it out and have it in my car handy, because Ernest and I travel around quite a bit to the different lunches, and we have to go different places for things, and I would like to have that in my eyesight to be able to use that. Let me break. So just wanted to put that out there. And I wanted to say that all the guys with the ESN have really put a lot of points out. I liked how Tim put what he set out. It was a good story. And Bobby, the things he's involved in, brings everything together. They all have different qualities, things to add to this. And Atlanta 260 Colt, his background sounds like a really good to have somebody like that with that experience to help out. Me break. And Ed with his list, that was a good idea, and I could understand where Simplex would definitely go in there after the GMRS, because you definitely need the Simplex in there to help with everything. And now, let me break. Quick key situation. Yes, it's definitely been going on, and I have actually stepped in myself and tried to help out. Try to be nice about it, and most people understand and don't get upset. But I try not to do it myself. I may do it occasionally. But yeah, I've had points, like Tim said, where I tried to get in and I waited for 30 minutes to make a remark, and I needed to get out somewhere and could not get through. So a lot of good points tonight, and I think everybody's probably learned a lot. And I'm hoping I'm remembering everything I wanted to say. But yeah, a list would be great, so we would have that handy. I think that would be add to that. So I will hand it back to you and hope I covered everything. So, I'm Pamela in Duluth.
All right. Yeah, I think the quick keying is certainly it's a challenge. All right. So, and we were commenting while you were on the air that it's something that we're all learning, but we'll forget it as soon as we grab the radio in the vehicle, and it's really hard. It just is. But I think if we can kind of consciously remember, and I know that the membership has been doing a lot better about making a specific break or taking a specific pause to allow for those comments to get in. And sometimes you'll hear a conversation going on, and you'll hear a comment, and then you'll hear 2 or 3 more exchanges, and then you'll hear a comment again. Maybe it's going to take a couple of chances, a couple of tries at that, because of the quick key that we are so it's just part of our nature, I think. It's a hard habit. It's just not the easiest thing. But I think that as a network we have done better, and I think we still have room to grow. So
I noticed that it happens to me. I'm not immune from quick keying, but I noticed that it's the worst when I'm getting off of a QSO on the amateur side, and quick key, like, you're expected to be right on the key in an amateur QSO. So if I'm having a conversation over there and I set that down, and 4 minutes later I'm picking up my GMRS mic and starting a conversation or jumping in on a conversation there, I'm more likely to make that mistake.
It's hard to change that cadence.
It is.
Yeah.
And I have to remind slow down.
Yeah.
So,
but that's the key, is we got to remember to slow down. And so, Pamela, with regard to the ESN net control operators, we're not going to publish a list. That's not really what the ESN is about. So the ESN network exists so that if there is an expected large event, big storm, if there is, if there's a natural disaster that happens within the region, if there is a major outage that occurs, then we may have an activation. And that activation would be basically that we're going to reach out to all of our ESN operators, and we're going to kind of on the fly organize a schedule. Who's available? Who can cover what time periods, and what kind of a time period do we need to cover? Because if it's a fast-moving set of storms that are bringing tornadoes, maybe the storms are here and gone in 2 or 3 hours, and that's happened.
Yep.
We've had storms blow through here so fast that by the time you get people in place, the whole show is over. Whereas, if we have a hurricane event, and Helena is the one that we want to go back to, because that one was so poorly predicted. Let me break. And I don't mean to say that it was poorly predicted, that nobody knew what they were doing, but it just didn't perform as it was expected to. And it could very easily have dwelled within the North Georgia region, and it could very easily have done devastating damage right here. We're lucky that we dodged that bullet, and it shifted around, and it went up and around us. But if we get into a situation where we're anticipating a big storm of that nature, we're going to activate the ESN. And that activation means that we're going to have net control operators who are standing by and monitoring. Now, they're going to come on the air probably once every 30 minutes or so, and they're going to say, hey, this is WQIR 514, Atlanta 946, Justin, and I'm monitoring for the ESN network, and I will be here for the next 30 minutes or the next 60 minutes or whatever it will be. And then when that time elapses, they're going to come on and they're going to say it again. So when the ESN network is activated, there's no expectation that regular traffic will stop. In fact, we want to, and I've coached my operators to say that, if there's an ongoing conversation that's going on and your 30 minutes is up, it's okay. Let them continue, and when there's an opportunity to break into that conversation, do so, and then get out of the way and let them continue. It doesn't have to be regimented and precise. That the idea is just that we want to make people aware that there is actively monitoring going on, so that if a tornado does happen and you've got a tree down on your house and the power is out and the phone doesn't work, you can know that when you grab that radio, there is somebody there monitoring. That's the point, is that there's somebody there monitoring, so that if you have trouble, they will be able to help you out, and they have the resources to be able to find the emergency services for the area that you're in.
Just to add, maybe what I don't know how it's being received or interpreted on by the members, but you don't have to know who to call out to.
That's right.
You don't have to know who the presiding net control operator is during an ESN activation if you have an emergency. In this example, a tree falls on your house, you can call out for help, and you don't have to know if it's Justin or me or Dana or Ed or anyone else that's got the key at that exact time.
And your emergency might not happen during an activation.
Well, that too.
You might have an emergency that happens outside of having an ESN activation, and in that case, you might get an ESN trained operator that can respond to your emergency, but maybe you get Tim.
Yeah.
Maybe you get Pamela.
Yeah.
When you call out for your emergency, and just because Pamela is not an ESN operator doesn't mean that she can't answer the radio and respond to that emergency and make an effort at finding the emergency services that member might need. So you don't have to be a qualified ESN net operator to be able to handle an emergency call. This is just an intentional program to say that we are going to have somebody in a chair with a radio, and they're going to be monitoring, specifically listening for an emergency call that hopefully never comes.
Yeah. That's it.
And that's the whole point of it.
And that's the reason we don't need to publish a list.
Yeah.
It's not important. If there is an activation, that person will identify themselves, and you can reach out to them or anyone else.
And the expectation, too, with having a number of people is we may have somebody that runs from 8 p.m. to midnight, and we may have somebody else that takes over at midnight and runs until 2 in the morning, and maybe somebody else that come on and run from 2 to 6.
Yep.
It just depends on who is available when that activation occurs, and we may have people come available as that activation endures, or we may have the storm has already blown through by the time.
Right.
So we've had those kind of scenarios roll through, and we just each one is going to be different, and we'll just have to roll with it.
But it is not a directed net. You don't have to call the net control operator and get permission to make your normal traffic. So just for the most part, unless you're impacted, just carry on.
That's right. And once there is a declaration of an emergency, then it kind of transitions into a more directed net.
Yes.
But until that happens, it's wide open. We encourage people to continue to communicate and use the airways. Just remember not to quit key, and the ESN operator may come on and remind people of that. But that's the plan. That's what the ESN is really all about, is making sure that somebody is equipped to deal with emergency services and has access to the directories that we've created, and has the ability to find help if somebody has a problem. Does that make sense, Pamela?
Yeah, yes, Justin, I can understand what you're saying. And like you said, different hours, you never know. And, of course, you know, I'm always available after midnight if something comes up and listening, and I have the radio on, and always will jump in to help somebody, whatever it is, and find a way to get them to who they need to get to. So that's, yeah, it's a good setup because, let me break. I recall being in the car and hearing somebody was at the lake, somebody was at the accident, somebody was at the hospital, and they were trying to communicate back and forth with each other to, you know, get the information for them and keep them in contact with everybody. And I thought that was where we needed to have somebody right there in a situation like that to be able to help. And I remember it worked out real well. I can't remember who it was, but somebody may recall that happening. But anyway, that was a good chance. But I appreciate you letting me speak. And back to y'all.
Very good. All right. Well, we're going to continue on and see if we can get to the end of this roster here. We've got next on the list, we've got Dallas 20 David in southwest Paulding County. David, did you have any questions or comments for tonight's net? I thought he was in and out.
He was, but he texted me and said he wanted to be in.
Fantastic. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, guys. Well, one reason why I kind of changed that to in instead of in and out was, you know, a huge thanks to Dana that night. It was March 15th when those storms rolled through. You know, he was a voice in the darkness, and he would continuously keep calling out. And they even asked if I wanted to be, you know, one of the net controllers for that night, but my power kept flickering, and I couldn't have a reliable radio service. So I couldn't do that. But he would continuously call out for me and then would give you know, the minute-by-minute updates and, you know, hey, it looks like that one, the storm system's passed or maybe another one coming up behind it, you know. So that was a comforting thing to know that there was somebody out there, you know, listening and monitoring the whole time. Again, you know, not trying to, you know, jump on the bandwagon here, but the quick key part, if there is the potential of that going on where that the emergency net has been activated, you know, you may want to take a little bit of extra time in between because each one of these repeaters have kind of a different delay. If I'm down in Columbus, you know, that delay is a little different to where it sounds like people are quick keying on my end. But I know they're not because I know who's talking. But there's just a little bit more delay through the system. So, you know, you may want to take a little bit of an extra time if a situation like that's taking place. Let me reset. Another thing, too, is if you need to have a storm box. You need to have a box set up to where here's some extra batteries for my radios, there's my flashlights, there's an FM radio so I could listen to WSB or what have you, your weather radio and some other things in there, whatever you feel you may need. It doesn't have to be a large comprehensive box, but have something put together instead of, where's my flashlight, where's my spare battery, you know. Have it all put together and ready to go. Another thing, too, is, and I had thought about this when those storms were rolling through, was you may want to have an extra antenna for the house. Because if that storm came through and wiped out your antenna, yeah, and it could just be from winds knocking that off, but your house is still intact and you have battery backups for your radios, but if you don't have an antenna, at least if you had a spare antenna, you could put one up there and get that rolling. Another thing, too, for any emergency, have a notepad and pen handy. You need to make sure you have something to write on. If you're taking notes on your computer, the power goes out, you lost all those notes. Have a pen and paper handy. Have it by the radio. I know most of us had those there to write tag numbers down, but you may need to jot down locations of that emergency situation. So that's all I had, guys. I appreciate it. And Lisa just walked by and said, hello, everyone.
Oh, that's a great point, David. And, that reminds me, because I didn't know such a thing existed until my son was talking about it. He'd asked us to find some waterproof notebooks and some waterproof pencils. And these are specifically designed so that you can read and write and be able to take notes in the direct rain. All right. So if you're out in the weather and you need to be able to document something, you need to be able to take down a number, you need to be able to record a GPS coordinate, whatever that might be, you have the means of doing that even in the pouring down rain. So finding that kind of a notebook and pencil could be a really valuable thing to have in an emergency bag, so that if you're trying to deal with the aftermath of a tornado, you might need those kind of tools. So better to do it when it's dry and sunny out than wish that you had in the middle of the event.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, good stuff. And did we add Dallas 21 to our log?
I didn't, but I will. That's a good point.
Yeah, we'll throw Dallas 21 in there as in and out, and tell Lisa
hi.
Tell Lisa hello for us, and looking forward to getting things back to normal, whatever that is, in the rabbit den. All right, where are we at? It looks like right
here.
Mr. Simplex is next. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Gainesville 58, Jonathan. Do you have any questions or comments for the net? Jonathan is also one of our ESN operators. Oh, David was too. I don't know if I mentioned that. But, yeah, David is also. Jonathan, do you have any questions or comments for tonight's net? All right. Maybe Jonathan is busy making the bread. You think that could be?
Maybe.
I don't know. But we're going to go ahead and show him as in and out and continue on. Next, we have Atlanta 1126, Joseph in Snellville. Joseph, do you have any questions or comments for tonight's net?
Yeah, good evening, Net Control. Yeah, I have some comments. Excellent net. A lot of good information going on. I kind of listened to the comments about not being able to get on the system, and to me, I think, and I have this when I'm on amateur radio bands as well, is that, as has been said before, and I would just reiterate that people need to leave a pause between the end of one transmission and the beginning of the next, and I think that no matter the length of the conversation, if we leave sufficient, let me break. If we leave a sufficient time between our keying, that would solve that issue. Also, kudos for the system that you're working on. I happen to be a founding member of InfraGuard, which is a joint FBI public and private coalition for spreading information about threats, basically cyber threats, but also physical threats. And I'm also an associate business continuity professional with the Disaster Recovery Institute of America. And so I would just offer my services if there's anything that I can help with in this endeavor. Be more than happy to share my experience. I have planned complete disaster recovery plans for organizations, including communication systems, computer systems, and primary and secondary systems. So I would just throw that out as an offer in case I could be of any assistance.
Oh, very good stuff. Well, I'll tell you what, if you don't mind sending me an email at justin@ngmrs.org, and let's engage in a conversation and see what that might look like. I think that's very interesting. So send me an email and I'll reply, and we'll exchange some information. Maybe have a phone conversation along the way. So good stuff, and fascinating what potential that might bring.
We've got such good people throughout this network that bring such a broad range of experience.
And, yeah, we do. And I think that we probably have a lot more resources than we take advantage of.
Or because we don't know.
We don't know, or because, somebody says, hey, I can do this. And, well, I'm not in the mindset for that. It's just like why I want him to send me an email, because by tomorrow morning I'm going to forget him. I'm going to forget all about that. So if you'll do that, if you'll send me an email, then that will cause me to not forget.
To remember.
Yeah. So good stuff. All right. Thank you again, Joseph. With that, we've got Chattanooga 248. Matthew in Old Fort, Tennessee. Matthew, any questions or comments for tonight's net?
Yes, sir. I think the ESN is a great idea. Even though I catch myself quick keying a lot, I want to echo all of Tim's comments. I'm right there with him on all that. Let me break. I'm a member of our county emergency 911 board here in the county I live in, and even though we don't get Saturday Night Live till sometime Tuesday morning, we were one of the first counties in Tennessee to implement the text to 911 program. So you can text 911 here. I hadn't heard anybody mention that at all, and we'll get it and get you some help. And even though we're as rural as we are, we were able to get that done just basically because of the 911 director's efforts. And that's all I had. Y'all done a great job on the net, and I appreciate it. Send it back to you.
That could be a really valuable asset. Yeah. I wonder how many 911 centers are capable of text, because I can see a number of scenarios. If you've got a home invader, you're trying to be stealthy, or you don't want to make any noise, or if it's a domestic violence case where you don't want to make a phone call because you don't want to get beat up for it, but maybe you can very discreetly open up your phone and pretend you're playing on Facebook, but instead be making a request for service through text messaging. And I can see where that could be hugely valuable. How much how often does your 911 center take calls through that text messaging?
It's, from what I've been hearing, 3-4 times a week right now. But once it catches on, I think it'll be more. But I haven't really been keeping that close of tabs on it. I just hear it on the radio while I'm at work, how the call came in. And it, from time to time, that's the dispatcher will indicate that that's the way the call came in. That helps the responding officers also.
Oh yeah, and that's I think that's a really powerful asset, for a 911 center to have, because I can see, just off the top of my head, I can imagine a couple of scenarios where that could be vitally important.
Totally.
And even if it's not vitally important, some people are just a lot more comfortable texting than calling. I'm with the railroad. I'm on the phone all stinking day. And the last thing I want to do when I get off work is call somebody on the phone. So I do a lot of text messaging, and I do a lot of chatting in different chat groups and stuff like that, because if a phone call is needed because there's detailed information, that's one thing. But if it's just the basic dumb stuff that we generally talk about anyway, I'd prefer to handle that over emails and text messaging and things of that nature. What I love about a text message is I can be in the middle of a conversation, and if I need to drop out of it, I can just put the phone down, and I can look at it tomorrow morning and be able to continue that conversation, because there's nothing that urgent about a text message. We can follow up on that the next day. And that kind of happened last night. There was a group chat going on, and it was late. I was tired, and I could hear the phone ding a couple of times after I'd gone to bed. But in the morning, that conversation was still live. So text messaging for 911 I think that's huge. So hats off to your. How would I find out if my 911 center allows for that?
Rogers is one step ahead of you.
You would watch the replay of tonight's net on YouTube, and Rogers pulled up all the information you need to know about text 911. It also lists the jurisdictions. So if there's a question whether your county is included, it's listed on this page.
I see my county up there.
There you go. There you go.
That's fantastic. Well, that's great
It's
stuff.
not available for every county in Georgia, but there's an extensive list here, though.
Well, there must be some cost to incorporating that into their systems, but hopefully we can find the funding to make that happen. That's fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for bringing that to light, because I'll bet there's a lot of people listening right now that had no idea that text to 911 was available. I didn't know. I'll be telling Julie about that tomorrow. So if there's ever a need to make that discreet communication, that's available. Good stuff. Anything to follow up with that, Matthew?
I did miss one point. The newer iPhones, they're capable of satellite texting, and it does work over satellite text when you do not have service. And that's all I had. You can go ahead and check me out. I appreciate it. Y'all did a great job.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out all the way to past 10 o'clock to convey that information. I think that was huge. So that does bring us to the end of the roster. At this time, we're going to take one final round of late check-ins or any questions or comments. Now's your opportunity to chime in. If you had a point that you'd like to make or a question you'd like to ask, and you're not checked in on tonight's roster, this is a great time to do that. So Net Control standing by for any late check-ins, any questions or comments.
250 with a comment.
I forgot about that.
Chattanooga 69 with a comment.
Sorry.
Dana? You have to Dana.
Yeah, well, yeah, but he texted me and said he had a rebuttal.
Oh. Okay.
And I meant to get to him right after Matthew, and so we don't have Zello, so we don't need that big, long, awkward pause. I think this is enough.
I agree.
All right, we've got comments from Atlanta 250 and Chattanooga 69. Hang on a second, Ronnie. Let's go to Dana. And Dana, what did you need to follow up on? Sorry, I missed your rebuttal. Well, I didn't miss it. I just kind of spaced it. But we got you in here now, Dana. Go ahead.
Well, real quick, and I know we touched on this a little bit, but just for, all of the NCOs that are on here, ESN operators, there does not have to be an activation for you as a control operator to seize control of a situation. It's pretty much expected. Tim was a perfect example. That story could not be better written. But take control. Also, if, let's say, and I'm going to give you a situation, let me break. If I'm taking control of a situation and I'm having a difficult time hearing the individual, but yet Mark over there in Rome is picking them up very well, you can hand off between controllers. Again, that would be expected because what we want is the best service possible out of this program. That being said, I would personally, and for Justin and Gary, like to thank every single one of the controllers that have stepped up, and they are what give this program credence, and we couldn't do it without them. So I applaud you all. Back to you, Net Control.
Well, thank you, Dana. I appreciate those comments. And yeah, I think that we've got a great team here, and I think that it's pretty well understood. We'll talk more about this during the training net that's coming up very soon. That'll be a closed net. So when we come to the training net, everyone obviously is welcome to listen in. But it'll be much like the ERC net. It'll be for ESN individuals only. And then if people have questions or comments, they can send an email to me, or they can reach out to Dana and get more information once we do that training net. For those that know, they know. There's not a published list, and so we'll just leave it at that. But Dana, I think we got a great team here, and I think that really most of the folks that are here and engaged in the ESN are of the mindset that it's first about providing the emergency service, and second about who gets what accolades. And we're not doing this for the sake of accolades. We're doing this because we think that we can provide a valuable service to the community, and that's really what this was. When it was presented to me to put this project together, my first thought was there's no way that I will have the time or the energy to organize such a thing, which is why I put all of this in Dana's hands. And by all of this, I mean all of this. Dana is the one who has reached out and communicated and sought the volunteers for the ESN network group. He is the one who has qualified the ESN operators. Dana is the one that compiled and organized all of the resources and directories and data that we have to find the various 911 centers throughout our region and beyond. So my hat's off to you, Dana, and the work that you have done. And I don't want anybody to think that this is anything short of a huge lift on your part, because you've done so much to bring us to where we are. And I'm really excited about the ESN. And even though tonight's net is really about urgent and emergency communications, I think the ESN is a great tool for North Georgia GMRS Network. And I think that going forward, it'll just make us a more powerful entity in terms of providing something back to the community in which we operate in. It's an opportunity for service. So with that, let's go to Chattanooga 69 Ronnie in Las Vegas. Ronnie, do you have any questions or comments for tonight's net?
WRKJ 453. Just a quick one, Justin. Everybody try to remember the 3 W's when reporting to that net controller: the what, the when, the where, so we can report it correctly to the right agency. We need to know what it was, when it was, where it happened, what time it was, anything that you can remember. I know it'll be rough under the circumstances, but if you can remember that, then we can report it accurately to the correct agency. And that's about it, guys. Great net. Thanks for doing it. Chattanooga 69, WRKJ 453. Back to you.
Oh, that's excellent, Ronnie. And yeah, I thought there were 5 W's. Let's see. There's the who, the what, the where, the when,
why,
and the why. But you know, when I'm trying to collect information from my railroad folks about an event, we exchanged the why for the how. How did it happen?
Yeah. I thought you were going to say you were just going to be happy if you got maybe 1 or 2 at the 5.
Well, yeah, 3 is kind of the minimum.
Okay.
You really, because if you only get 1 or 2, you don't really have enough information to.
That's not a case.
Yeah. You don't have, and you don't know where to go. You don't know what. You don't know who. So you really need at least 3. But I always ask for 5. Sometimes I get 3, 4. But the more information that you can convey, and let's face it, if you're dealing with an emergency crisis, whether it's an injury, whether it's a weather event, and you've got a tree that's on top of your house, like Miss Nancy did earlier tonight.
Yep.
The tree was literally on her house. Fortunately, the tree was small enough that it didn't really do any damage to the house, but it did knock out her electricity. If that had been an emergency with injuries, it's really hard not to be overly excited about reporting that information. And so we really do need to be able to have the temperament to slow down and convey as much information and good information as you can. If you have a specific address, use it. But if the address you have is the address for the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that's not going to tell anybody anything.
Nope,
I mean,
that's not going to help Miss Nancy at all.
It's not going to help Miss Nancy. But if you've got an injury in the grandstands at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and you happen to know the address of the stadium, we need to know what section and row you're in.
Yeah.
Tell us the seat number if you can, so that we can get somebody directed to right where you are. Because if we just send somebody to the stadium because there's an injury, you're probably not going to get any help.
That's true.
So the situational awareness that we talked about is vitally important, and all these points for tonight, and this is recorded. So if anybody missed anything, you can at any point in time go back to YouTube and search for North Georgia GMRS Network, and you'll be able to find this episode, and you can play it back for your family, or you can just watch it again, put it on
in the background.
Put it on in the background when you're working,
Yeah.
and just kind of go through some of the material again, and maybe serve as a reminder. So, or don't. But, let me break. And so that will bring us to the end of tonight's program. So this is the part where I say this concludes the North Georgia GMRS Regional. And tonight we had a total of
75.
75. Okay, we had 75 chickens, including myself, and the rest of Net Control. We will now be returning the repeaters back to normal use. Everyone who signed in should sign out. Don't forget, like and subscribe, and remember, comments on the YouTube video shows engagement with the video and helps the channel grow. Tune in next week on any North Georgia GMRS linked repeater or on YouTube live stream, or both, when we talk about ammo cans, man packs, go boxes, and portable comms.
I love this topic.
So tune in next week for that. Until then, we hope you all have a great week. Thanks for allowing us to serve as your net control this evening. Good night, everyone. This is Atlanta 946. WQYR 514. My name is Justin.
And this is WRWM 344, Blue Ridge 63. My name is Mike.
And this is WSAL 368, Atlanta 263. My name is Rogers.
And this is WRUB 711, Atlanta 519. My name is Gary.
We are North Georgia GMRS Network.
And we are clear.
Good night, folks.